50 years of independence, Nigeria leaned heavily on its oil wealth. Some analysts feel that this dependency on oil led to economic problems.
I think in 1960, when we started, there was no oil. By 65, the first barrels were there. Then we had the Civil War, and then we had the oil boom. From there, we lost direction. So resources were deployed in favor of the easy and the low-hanging fruits, and there was an abandonment of the fundamentals, which was agric. The economic managers never planned to actually maintain some equilibrium between both sectors. Recently, we've begun to see an upsurge again of the agriculture and the processing area. But basically, we lost our sense of competitive advantage.
Nigeria has been trying to change. In the past 10 years, there has been reform in the banking industry and privatization of the telecom sector.
When we did the GSM licensing, and from that point of view, we introduced private sector carriers to manage Nigeria's telecommunications industry. Between then and now, you've then created, 4 giant companies. You've got MTN, you've got Globacom, you've got Bharti Telecom, and of course you've now Etisalat. Not excluding the myriad of other private telephone operators and other telecom service providers, value-added service providers that the whole industry has created. In that time span, I think the Nigerian banking sector has benefited immensely from that industry coming in. So you look at it from an experiential point of view, and you think, the government was definitely right to have done what it did at the right time. We have now about 80 million phone line users in Nigeria. 10 years ago, you could barely scratch out 300,000 fixed line users in the country, many of which did not work.
Further to this, the future of Nigerian banking seems set to be a bright one.
Assuming that we achieve the same degree of success in privatizing the power sector as we've done in the telecommunications sector over the next 10 years, I think that in effect we'll probably have about 10 times the impact that the telecom sector has had on Nigeria. Because, pretty much every Nigerian that's worth his salt has some kind of power backup system, from the very small generators to big offices like yourself that have probably multiple large generators. And I've seen some estimates somewhere to suggest that the generators in Nigeria, when strung together and you added up their capacity, are able to power all of Africa 2 times over. And that is embarrassing for a country of our size. If in 10 years we get power into the country, then probably all manufacturing companies will see a 50% improvement in their operating performance. And certainly most service companies will see at least a 20% improvement and that itself would lead to more efficiency, will allow people to have the freedom to invest more in the economy, in their business, and grow. So that would augur very well for the banking sector indeed.
But in order for Nigeria to fulfill its potential, a lot of its important decisions have to be made by the country's leaders.
This country, really has a lot in terms of human talent. It's not just about being the most populous country in Africa. It's also about the quality, of the human talent that we have in this environment. But unfortunately, in 50 years, we've not been able to translate all of that into good governance, leadership. The lack of enlightenment, self-enlightenment, if I may use that word, on the part of the leadership elite in Nigeria. The failure of the leadership elite to realize that for the elite to be able to enjoy their wealth, they have to ensure prosperity within the environment.
Most prominent is a leadership void. Secondly, the crisis in education, because manpower is a fundamental problem in Nigeria. We had very strong manpower. We had a pipeline of good schools, high school enrollment, good outsourcing facilities, and there was a good outreach as well. But in the last 20 years, we've gone into a crisis mode, and that has been exacerbated by the lack of investment in that particular area. Again, another manifestation of the crisis in leadership and crisis in manpower. If we don't get it right this time around, if in the next 2-3 years you don't get it right with your elections, you don't get it right with policy, then this country will be doomed.
We've seen this country work before, and I think that it can rise again. And I think that, it is this message of hope and of promise and of possibilities that we can translate into a greater achievement that Nigerians should begin to think about as we celebrate 50 or as we mark 50.
The new decade kicks off with the 2011 general elections, and it is hoped that this will see the country's leaders take steps towards a more prosperous Nigeria.